I'm just sitting here next to my bird's nest snake plant, aka Sansevieria plant. Oh, I think it's time to divide that. Good day, Green Thumbs. My name is Brandon, owner of Easy Swap Pots, and I am sitting next to a variegated bird's nest snake plant. And they call it a bird's nest snake plant because it's one of the dwarf varieties and it doesn't get super tall. There are numerous different varieties, of course. This was a solo plant gifted on Mother's Day. You can see I got it in a decorative container. And it's grown some pups and it's getting a little crowded in there, so I think it's time to divide and repot. And we'll show you just how to do that, so stay tuned. Now, before we get going on the repotting and dividing of the snake plant, we are going to need some pruners, some extra containers to put our pups in, some potting soil. Now, I would only suggest cactus potting soil if you're using maybe a clay pot or a plastic pot, something that doesn't breathe as well. And the only reason why I'm using this is just to use it up, but otherwise I'd use any old potting soil. So first and foremost, we're going to have to get this plant out of the container. So I had a little trickery going on there. Actually, I do have it in one of my Easy Swap fabric pots. We do like to use these just because it makes transplanting and dividing super easy. And maybe someday I can show how to make these decorative planters out of tin cans. So I got my snake plant out. I'm going to unsnap all sides. If you're in a different type of container, you're just going to have to turn it over, loosen up the root ball. And now I can lay it down. You can see some of the benefits of using an Easy Swap pot. It first creates a saucer, so all the soil is going to get caught inside and minimize the amount of mess that it's going to make. And then it also just makes getting at the roots extremely easy without damaging the plant. And I'll bring it up close. So this was the original plant. You can see we got a pup here, a pup here, and a pup here, and a couple on the back side. And now these actually grow rhizomes, and then the rhizomes are connected to the main plant. So we are going to have to cut the rhizome from the main plant, separate the pups, and try to keep as many roots on that pup alive as possible going into its new container. So a good start is you're going to want to knock off as much soil as possible. Without knocking off so many roots. So there, I would say that's pretty good. I did knock some of the roots off, but there we got a root ball. And now it's going to be as simple of trying to find where the rhizome connects to the main plant, and then cutting with your pruners. We'll start with an easy one. That's going to be this big guy over here on the side. I've now located the rhizome in the connecting spot. Reach in there, cut it off, and voila, we got a separate rhizome. This is where I cut it off, and we got plenty of roots for the plant to grow a new plant. We'll set that aside. Now I'm going to try to get these other two off of here. And then there we go, there's two more pups. Not as well rooted, but hopefully we have some success with that. It shouldn't be a problem. And I'm actually going to leave the rest of this, I think. Nah, I'm going to take this other one too, actually. Alright, now that looks much better. I can see an old rhizome that kind of rotted off. Looks like it grew a new one right there. So we'll repot those up, and then I will put this main guy back in its original container. Now, a fun fact is actually most snake plants do like to be a little root bound. They also like dry soil conditions. They prefer to stay drier. So fabric pots work great. Now would be a good time too, if you wanted to, is to knock some of the old soil out and put in new stuff. I'm just a big fan of using the same potting soil and sprinkling some fertilizer or compost across the top of the pot. And you want to make sure not to pot them too deep and almost kind of aim for the same depth that they were potted in. So there, that has been divided. I guess not necessarily repotted, but I am going to sprinkle some compost on top, give it some new nutrition, put it back in its decorative container, and that's exactly how it was gifted back on Mother's Day, right there. So that sits in low light level conditions, and in over 3-4 months we had enough pups to get 2 or 3 new plants. So just a quick example of how we'll repot these new ones. I've got fresh potting soil in these. Looks like this one can use a little more. My little favorite trick is always to try to use some kelp, especially if I'm transplanting or doing any kind of dividing or starting new plants. The trick with this is that this will spike the pH, so I like to use rainwater. And this is micronized kelp, so this is readily available and fast acting. It don't take much, about the size of a pea. I'm going to put that in about a gallon of water. Stir it up good. And then give it just some water to begin with. This potting soil is real dry, so it's actually going to take a while for it to actually soak up. Alright, so I'm going to keep 2 and 2 together. Oh, it looks like I'm going to have to take out some of the soil. There we are, put it back on top. Again, I'm just shooting to get the soil just right above the top roots there. All right. We got these pups repotted. Now what I like to do with most succulents and or most plants in general after dividing them and redoing them is water them really, really good and then let them completely dry out. If you water them and keep them really well watered, a lot of times you're actually going to rot the roots and then the plant will just die. I'm using kelp because it's going to provide a lot of micronutrients. It's also going to stimulate root growth and really help the plant not be so stressed out from all this. And then don't forget mother plant. Now that tin can I didn't drill holes in so it doesn't actually drain, so I do have to be careful there. And there you go, we got our dwarf bird's nest snake plant divided and repotted in just a few minutes. I hope you learned something, and I encourage you to keep on greening them thumbs. Until next time, peace.